For 30 years, I gave everything for the sake of my children. I paid for their education, weddings, houses, and then my daughter said it to my face. Dad, we don't need you at the Father's Day dinner. Little did she know that the next day I would cancel their mortgage check for $180,000. Was it revenge? No, it was justice. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I caught my reflection in the glass door of the Metropolitan and straightened my tie one last time. The navy suit felt right tonight, formal enough for the occasion but not stuffy. Through the windows I could see other families already seated, wine glasses catching the warm light, children laughing with their parents. Father's Day evening exactly as it should be. The hostess smiled as I approached. "Mitchell, party of 4, I said, the words carrying all the hope I'd been nurturing for weeks. She led me to our table. White tablecloth, fresh flowers, overlooking the downtown Spokane lights beginning to twinkle in the early evening. I placed the wrapped gifts carefully beside my chair. Ashley's was heavier, a jewelry box I'd had custom made, engraved with her initials. Michael's was smaller but more expensive, vintage cufflinks that had belonged to my father, both boxes wrapped in silver paper that cost more than most people spent on lunch. 6:30 became 6:45. I checked my phone twice, then made myself stop. They were busy people, successful people. Ashley with her interior design business, Michael with his consulting firm. I was proud of them, even when they ran late. 7 o'clock arrived with the sound of heels on hardwood. Ashley appeared first, her blonde hair perfect, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Michael followed, tugging at his collar, avoiding my eyes in that way he'd perfected since childhood. "Dad?" Ashley's voice carried no warmth as she settled into her chair, not bothering to remove her coat. Michael mumbled something that might have been a greeting. I stood to hug them, but Ashley was already examining her menu. "The salmon looks good," I said, desperate to fill the silence that seemed to press against our table like fog. "Actually, Dad, we need to talk." Ashley set down her menu with the precision of someone placing a chess piece. Her green eyes, so much like her mother's, but cold in a way Sarah's never were, fixed on mine. My stomach tightened. "Of course, sweetheart, what's on your mind?" She exchanged a look with Michael, who suddenly became fascinated by his water glass. "We've been discussing this, and we think it's time for some honesty." The word honesty felt like ice sliding down my spine. Around us, other families continued their celebrations, their laughter creating a soundtrack that made our table feel like an island of brewing storm. "Dad, honestly, we don't need you here tonight." Each word fell with deliberate weight. "We want to spend Father's Day with people who've actually accomplished something meaningful." The restaurant continued spinning around us, but my world stopped. The wrapped gifts beside my chair suddenly felt like evidence of my foolishness. "Ashley, I don't understand. You're 64 years old, and what do you have to show for it? A construction business that anyone could run?" She laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. "We're building real careers, real lives. We don't need to pretend anymore." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Ashley, maybe we should—" "What? Spare his feelings?" She turned back to me. "Dad, you're a nice man, but let's face it, you're not someone we admire. You're not someone we want to spend our time with." My hands found my water glass, gripping it to stop the trembling that had started somewhere deep inside. 34 years of bedtime stories, soccer practices, college tuition payments, wedding costs, all of it reduced to this moment of casual cruelty. I said carefully, my voice coming from somewhere far away, "I need to use the restroom." I stood on legs that didn't feel quite steady and walked across the restaurant, past tables full of families who still loved each other, past the bar where couples shared intimate conversations, into the men's room where fluorescent lights revealed every line on my face in the mirror. 30 years. 30 years I gave them everything. I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. The man looking back at me still wore the same expensive tie, the same hopeful expression I'd carried into the restaurant, but something in his eyes had changed. Something harder was stirring beneath the hurt. 2 hours later, I sat in my home office with a glass of scotch, surrounded by the ghosts of better times. The drive home had passed in silence, not the comfortable quiet of contentment, but the hollow absence of sound that follows devastation. Photos covered every surface. Ashley in her graduation cap, Michael holding his first business award, family vacations where their smiles had seemed genuine. Had I imagined the love in those pictures? Had every hug been performance, every "I love you, Dad" been calculation? I pulled out the filing cabinet drawer marked Family Financial Records. 20 years of canceled checks, bank statements, loan documents, the paper trail of unconditional love. Ashley's college, $87,000. Her wedding, $180,000. The down payment on her house, $120,000. Michael's MBA program, $85,000. His business startup loan that I'd co-signed, $95,000. His house down payment, $100,000. The numbers swam in front of me as I poured another drink. Over $500,000, and that didn't count the smaller things: car payments, insurance premiums, emergency loans that became permanent gifts. I found Michael's thank you card from 2019, his handwriting still boyish despite his 31 years. "You're the best dad ever. I couldn't have done this without you." The card had sat on my desk for months, a treasure more valuable than any business contract. Now it felt like evidence in a fraud case. There was Ashley's jewelry box on my bookshelf, the antique one I'd given her for her 21st birthday, filled with my grandmother's pearls and my mother's engagement ring. She'd left it here 3 years ago, claiming she wanted to keep it safe. I'd never seen her wear any of it, probably thought it wasn't fashionable enough for her social circle. The scotch burned, but not as much as the memories flooding back. Ashley at 16, crying because she couldn't afford the prom dress she wanted. I'd worked overtime for 3 weeks to buy it. Michael at 25, panicked about his business failing, calling me at midnight for a loan that would save everything. I liquidated part of my retirement fund the next morning. Every sacrifice had felt like love in action. Every check I'd written was an investment in their happiness, their success, their future. I'd built my construction business from nothing, working 16-hour days, bleeding knuckles and aching backs, all so they could have opportunities I'd never had. Sarah's voice echoed from memory. "Robert, don't spoil them too much. They need to learn independence." I'd kissed her forehead and promised I wouldn't, then written another check the next week. She'd been gone 5 years now, and I wondered what she would think of tonight's scene. I opened another photo album, this one from Ashley's wedding. She looked radiant in the $5,000 dress, standing in the $50,000 reception hall, surrounded by the $200 per plate dinner I'd insisted on paying for. "Nothing's too good for my little girl," I'd told the wedding planner. Ashley had kissed my cheek and whispered, "Thank you for making this perfect, Daddy." Had that kiss been real? Had any of it been real? The office grew quiet, except for the ticking of my grandfather's clock and the distant hum of traffic. I closed the last photo album and walked to the window overlooking the city lights. Spokane spread out below. Thousands of families tucked into their homes, most of them probably dealing with normal problems: homework and bedtimes and mortgage payments. My reflection in the window showed a different man than the one who'd entered this room 3 hours ago. Still hurt, yes, but something else was crystallizing beneath the pain. Something that felt dangerously like clarity. I built them their lives. Maybe it's time to see how they handle building their own. The city lights blurred slightly as I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. 11:30 at night, and my mind had never been clearer. The emotional fog that had clouded my thinking for years, maybe decades, was finally lifting. I returned to my desk and began organizing the scattered documents into neat piles. One stack for Ashley's financial dependencies, another for Michael's, a third for joint obligations where I served as guarantor or co-signer. The businessman in me, dormant during years of fatherly indulgence, suddenly awakened with sharp focus. My gold pen, the one the construction workers union had presented me 20 years ago, felt substantial in my hand as I began making notes. Ashley, credit cards guaranteed by RM, car loan co-signed, health insurance through my policy, cell phone family plan. The list grew longer as I worked through my memory of every financial connection. Michael, business loan guaranteed by RM, mortgage co-signed, car insurance bundled with mine, frequent emergency loans averaging $3,000 monthly. I paused, staring at that last item. $3,000 a month in emergencies that had become routine. When had I stopped questioning where the money went? I picked up my phone and dialed my lawyer's number, knowing it would go to voicemail at this hour. "Bill, it's Robert Mitchell. I need to discuss some changes to my financial arrangements. Call me tomorrow. This is urgent." My voice sounded different even to me, less accommodating, more decisive. Next, I called my accountant. "Margaret, Robert Mitchell here. I need a comprehensive review of all my financial obligations, particularly those involving my children. Schedule it for this week." The scotch sat forgotten as I worked, adrenaline providing better fuel than alcohol. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and began drafting questions. What happens to Ashley's mortgage if I withdraw as co-signer? Can Michael's business survive without my backing? How quickly can various financial arrangements be legally terminated? Each question felt like armor being forged, protection against the emotional manipulation that had controlled my decisions for so long. These weren't my children I was thinking about anymore. These were adults who had chosen to sever our emotional connection. If they wanted independence from me personally, they could have independence financially as well. I found myself talking to the empty room, a habit I'd developed since Sarah's death. "You know what, Robert? You're not actually poor. You're not actually unsuccessful. You built a business that employs 47 people. You own this house free and clear. You have investments, savings, respect in this community." The realization struck me like cold water. I had been allowing them to define my worth, while simultaneously funding their lifestyles. They despised the man whose money made their social climbing possible. I opened my laptop and created a new spreadsheet titled Financial Independence Project. Column headers: dependent, type of support, monthly cost, legal requirements for termination, timeline for withdrawal. This was no longer emotional, it was strategic. My construction business had succeeded because I understood that relationships were transactional. Contractors delivered services, clients paid agreed amounts, everyone honored their obligations. Somehow, with Ashley and Michael, I'd forgotten that principle. I'd been providing services, financial support, emotional availability, problem solving, while receiving nothing but contempt in return. The grandfather clock chimed midnight, but I felt more energetic than I had in years. Tomorrow would begin a new phase of my life, one where mutual respect was required for continued relationship. If they wanted to judge me as inadequate, they could do so without my financial assistance. I locked the organized documents in my safe, set my alarm for 7 a.m., and headed upstairs. As I climbed the stairs, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. Tomorrow, I start making some calls. It's time they learned what independence really costs. 7:30. Monday morning found me back at my desk with coffee instead of scotch, dressed in casual clothes but alert with purpose. The emotional rawness of 2 nights ago had crystallized into cold efficiency. My notepad lay ready beside my computer, phone within easy reach. I started with Ashley's bank, where I'd co-signed her mortgage and served as guarantor on 2 credit cards. This is Robert Mitchell, account holder on several joint accounts. I need to verify my current obligations and review options for account modifications. The representative was helpful, perhaps too helpful. Mr. Mitchell, I show your guarantor on $127,000 in outstanding credit balances across 3 cards, plus the mortgage balance of $340,000. The minimum payments alone are running about $3,200 monthly, though we typically see higher payments from accounts of this caliber. I wrote the numbers down carefully. And if I were to remove myself as guarantor? Well, sir, the primary account holders would need to qualify independently for the credit lines. Given current debt-to-income ratios, that might be challenging. Michael's situation proved even more enlightening. His successful consulting business carried $47,000 in credit card debt, all backed by my guarantees. His business loan, the one that had saved everything 2 years ago, still carried a balance of $78,000 with payments that would continue for 6 more years. What's the business's current revenue? I asked his bank representative. I can only speak to account activity, sir, but let's say the cash flow patterns suggest ongoing challenges. My accountant returned my call while I was reviewing insurance policies. Robert, I got your message. What's this about reviewing obligations to your children? Margaret, I need exact numbers. Every dollar I'm committed to, every guarantee I've signed, every policy where they're beneficiaries. And I need to know the legal requirements for changing those arrangements. Her pause told me she sensed the gravity behind my request. Robert, are you having family difficulties? These kinds of changes can have significant implications. Just the analysis, Margaret. I'll explain when we meet. By 10 a.m., my notepad contained a staggering inventory. Between mortgage guarantees, credit card backing, insurance premiums, car payments, and the emergency transfers that had become routine, I was supporting $472,000 in their obligations and providing roughly $8,000 monthly in various forms of assistance. The most shocking discovery came from Michael's car insurance company. His policy had lapsed 3 times in the past year due to non-payment, each time quietly reinstated when automatic charges hit my account. He'd been driving uninsured for weeks at a time without even knowing it, protected only by my willingness to cover his oversights. Ashley's credit report, which I could access as co-signer, revealed shopping patterns that would have impressed royalty. 5-star restaurants, luxury boutiques, spa treatments, all charged to cards I guaranteed while she played the successful businesswoman. My lawyer called back just before 11. Robert, you sounded urgent yesterday. What's going on? Bill, I need to see you today. I want to review every financial commitment I've made to my children and understand my options for restructuring those relationships. Restructuring family financial relationships can be complicated, Robert. There are legal implications, tax consequences, and frankly, emotional considerations that... The emotional considerations have already been settled, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. I need legal guidance on the practical matters. Can you be here at 2 o'clock? I stared at my notes showing over $400,000 in current financial exposure to 2 people who had publicly declared me beneath their respect. The irony was almost artistic in its perfection. I reached for my phone to confirm the appointment, then hesitated. Once I walked into Bill's office this afternoon, I would be crossing a line from hurt parent to strategic adversary. There would be no pretending this was temporary anger or wounded pride. But as I looked around my office, at the awards from the construction industry, the photos of buildings I designed and built, the evidence of a successful life they dismissed as meaningless, I realized the line had already been crossed. They'd crossed it Sunday night at the Metropolitan. I dialed Bill's number. It's Robert. 2 o'clock works perfectly. And Bill, bring the paperwork for financial power of attorney revocations. We have a lot of work to do. The manila folder felt substantial in my hands as I sat in my Mercedes outside Bill's office, engine running but going nowhere yet. 90 minutes of legal consultation had transformed my scattered anger into something far more dangerous. A systematic plan with teeth. I reviewed the documents Bill had prepared. Power of attorney revocations, guarantee termination notices, cosigner withdrawal forms, each paper a scalpel designed to sever the financial arteries that kept my children's lifestyle alive. The beauty was in the legality of it all. Every signature was mine, every account bore my name, every guarantee existed at my discretion. I drove to Mitchell Construction, my company headquarters where I'd built an empire from nothing. The afternoon sun slanted through my executive office windows as I spread the legal papers across my mahogany desk. This space had witnessed million-dollar deals, complex negotiations, strategic victories that had made me wealthy enough to spoil 2 ungrateful children for 3 decades. Now it would witness something else entirely. I opened my laptop and created a new document titled Financial Independence Timeline. The methodology was pure business. Identify dependencies, prioritize impact, execute systematically. Ashley's credit cards first. Immediate embarrassment with minimal legal complexity. Michael's business, credit line second. Professional humiliation to match personal disappointment. Mortgage guarantees would come later, when they understood this wasn't temporary anger but permanent restructuring. My accountant Margaret returned my call while I was organizing account numbers. Robert, I got your earlier message. You mentioned restructuring some family accounts. That's right. I need you to set up a separate banking relationship, completely isolated from any accounts my children can access. And, Margaret, from now on, all my financial decisions go through you first. No more direct payments, no more emergency transfers, no more blank checks for family. Her pause told me she sensed the gravity. Robert, are you having difficulties with Ashley and Michael? Quite the opposite. I'm having clarity. I leaned back in my leather chair, watching traffic flow past my window, regular people ending regular workdays, unaware that a family war was beginning 6 floors above them. They've made it clear they don't need me in their lives. I'm simply honoring their wishes. If you're sure about this, I've never been more certain of anything. After hanging up, I pulled out a yellow legal pad and began drafting what would become my children's introduction to reality. Not an angry letter, that would give them ammunition to paint me as the villain. Instead, a business communication, professional and measured, explaining the new parameters of our relationship. The grandfather clock in my office chimed 4:30. Perfect timing. Ashley would be getting ready for whatever expensive dinner she'd planned for tonight, secure in the knowledge that her platinum card would cover whatever indulgence struck her fancy. Michael would be at his office, running his consulting business on credit lines I guaranteed, playing successful entrepreneur with my money. But not tonight. Tonight, the rules changed. I reached for my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for Ashley's primary credit card company. My finger hovered over the call button as I savored this moment, the last few seconds before my children's world began to crumble. The irony was exquisite. They'd spent Sunday evening explaining how unsuccessful I was, how little I'd accomplished, how embarrassed they were to call me father. By next Sunday, they'd discover exactly how much their dismissal was worth. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Perfect timing. Just as Ashley was probably getting ready for another expensive dinner she couldn't actually afford. My finger pressed the call button with the same steady precision I'd used to sign million-dollar construction contracts. The customer service representative sounded professionally cheerful, unaware she was about to help me detonate my daughter's financial life. Good afternoon, this is Robert Mitchell. I need to remove my guarantee from account ending in 4847. Of course, Mr. Mitchell. Let me pull up that account. I see you're the primary guarantor for Ashley Mitchell Carter. May I ask the reason for the guarantee removal? Personal financial restructuring. The account holder will need to qualify independently going forward. 23 years I'd covered Ashley's overspending, designer clothes, luxury vacations, restaurant bills that exceeded most families' weekly grocery budgets, all charged to cards I guaranteed while she maintained the illusion of independence. Let's see how she manages her lifestyle now. Sir, I need to inform you that this change will affect the account immediately. The primary cardholder's credit limit will be reduced to whatever amount they qualify for independently, and any current balance above that limit will require immediate payment. That's exactly the point. The satisfaction in my voice must have been audible because the representative paused slightly before continuing with the termination process. Within minutes, Ashley's primary financial lifeline was severed. The account that had sustained her social climbing for over 2 decades no longer existed. I immediately dialed Michael's business credit line. Same process, same professional efficiency, same devastating result. The consulting business he ran with my backing would discover its credit frozen by close of business today. Mr. Mitchell, the business banker confirmed, the account closure means any outstanding payments will be returned to vendors and no new charges can be processed. The primary business owner should be notified immediately. He'll figure it out. In between calls, I instructed my assistant Linda to hold all calls from my children. If Ashley or Michael call, tell them I'm in meetings all week. Take messages, but I won't be returning them. Linda, who'd worked for me for 15 years and watched me spoil my children into entitled adults, simply nodded. Yes, Mr. Mitchell. Anything else? If either of them shows up here, call me before sending them up. And Linda, keep detailed records of all interactions. By 5:15, I'd canceled 3 of Ashley's credit cards and Michael's business line of credit. The methodical destruction felt cleaner than anger, more permanent than shouting. This was business, cause and effect, action and consequence, the natural order they'd somehow never learned. I was reaching for my phone to cancel Ashley's car insurance when it buzzed with a text message. Ashley's name appeared on the screen. Dad, there's something wrong with my credit card. The restaurant says it's been canceled. This has to be a mistake. Call me ASAP. I read the message twice, imagining the scene. Ashley at some upscale establishment, card declined, her face flushing with embarrassment as other diners watched. The entitled princess discovering that her kingdom was built on sand. I set the phone face down on my desk without responding. 30 minutes passed in productive silence. I'd canceled Ashley's auto insurance, the policy she'd never paid for but assumed would always exist. I'd removed Michael from our family cell phone plan, a service he'd enjoyed free for over a decade while building his independent business. My phone lay silent, its ringer disabled, but I could see the screen lighting up repeatedly with incoming calls. Ashley, Michael, Ashley again. The panic was beginning. I allowed myself the indulgence of listening to one voicemail from Michael. His voice carried a tremor I'd never heard before. The sound of a man watching his safety net disintegrate in real time. Dad, what's happening? My business account is frozen. The bank says you canceled the guarantee. There has to be some mistake. My payroll processes tomorrow and I have vendor payments due. Please call me back immediately. The desperation was music. For years, Michael had treated our conversations like inconvenient interruptions to his busy schedule. Now urgency dripped from every word. Ashley's voicemail carried a different tone, demanding rather than pleading, still convinced she could order me to fix what she saw as a problem rather than recognizing it as justice. Dad, this isn't funny. My insurance company says my policy was canceled. My phone is showing service suspended. Fix this right now. I have a reputation to maintain, and this is humiliating. Reputation. The word that defined her existence. Everything Ashley did was calculated for social impact, every choice measured against how it would appear to her circle of equally shallow friends. The thought of her reputation crumbling brought a smile I hadn't felt in years. I continued working through my list. Michael's business insurance, canceled. Ashley's health insurance policy that I'd maintained since her divorce, terminated. Each phone call felt like removing tumors that had been draining my life force for decades. The intercom buzzed. Linda's voice carried a note of warning. Mr. Mitchell, your daughter is here. She seems upset. Through my office window, the city sparkled with rush hour lights. Normal families were heading home to normal problems, homework and dinner preparations and bedtime routines. Below me, Ashley was probably pacing in the lobby, her designer heels clicking against marble floors I'd paid to install when I built this building. Send her up, I said, straightening my tie. But Linda, if she raises her voice or becomes disrespectful, call security immediately. I arranged the cancellation confirmations on my desk where Ashley would see them the moment she walked in. Evidence of systematic dismantling, proof that this wasn't emotional reaction but strategic planning. Let her understand that she was facing not the indulgent father she'd manipulated for 34 years, but the businessman who'd built an empire through calculated decisions. The elevator dinged in the hallway. Ashley burst through my office door like she owned the building, which in a way she thought she did. Everything I'd built, everything I'd achieved, she'd always assumed was partially hers by birthright. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled despite her apparent crisis. Her designer dress probably cost more than most people earned in a week, and her jewelry caught the office lights with expensive sparkle. All purchased with my support, all maintained through my generosity, all about to become unaffordable. Dad, you have to fix this immediately. She didn't sit down, didn't acknowledge the careful arrangement of cancellation papers on my desk, didn't seem to grasp that the power dynamic had shifted completely. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? My card was declined at Meridian, in front of the Hartwell Foundation board. These are important people. Embarrassing? I leaned back in my chair, studying my daughter as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Tell me about embarrassing Ashley, like Father's Day dinner? Her jaw tightened slightly, but she pressed forward with the same entitled authority she'd wielded since childhood. Dad, I'm sorry if we hurt your feelings, but this is extreme. You can't just cut off my accounts because of one dinner conversation. One conversation? I picked up the stack of credit card cancellation confirmations, letting the papers rustle in the silence. 30 years of conversations, Ashley. 30 years of apologizing for my children's behavior. Not anymore. For the first time since entering, she seemed to notice the documents spread across my desk. Her eyes widened as she recognized bank letterheads, account numbers, official termination notices. What is all this? Your introduction to independence. You said you don't need me in your life. I'm honoring that request. The mask began to slip. Ashley's composed facade cracked as she realized this wasn't a tantrum to be managed, but a systematic restructuring of our entire relationship. She moved to the chair across from my desk, finally sitting down, her movements less certain. Dad, look, maybe we were too harsh on Sunday, but you can't seriously expect us to. To what? Support ourselves. Succeed without my money backing every decision? Live within your actual means instead of mine. Tears appeared. Practiced tears I'd seen countless times over 3 decades. We never asked to be born. You owe us this. Family takes care of family. Family. The word tasted bitter. When exactly did you last treat me like family, Ashley? When did Michael? When was the last time either of you called just to ask how I was doing? When did you last invite me somewhere without needing money? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. We both knew the answer. You want to know what family looks like? I gestured toward my office walls, covered with photos from construction sites, award ceremonies, community events, a lifetime of achievement they'd dismissed as meaningless. Family doesn't humiliate each other in public restaurants. Family doesn't treat their father like an ATM machine with legs. Ashley's tears dried up quickly when she realized they weren't working. Her face hardened into something ugly and familiar, the expression she'd worn as a teenager when denied something she wanted. So what? You're cutting us off completely over one stupid dinner? Over 34 years of taking everything and giving nothing back except contempt. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Fine. You want to play games? Michael was right about you. You were just a pathetic old man trying to buy love. Well, congratulations, Dad. You just lost the only family you had left. She stormed toward the door, designer heels striking my hardwood floors like gunshots. At the threshold, she spun back with pure venom in her voice. And don't expect us to come crawling back when you change your mind. Some bridges, once burned, stay burned. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat in the sudden silence, then opened my desk drawer and pulled out a thicker file labeled Phase 2. Ashley was wrong about one thing. I had no intention of changing my mind. Some bridges needed burning. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I opened the file labeled Phase 2. Ashley's parting words had accomplished something I hadn't expected. They'd eliminated the last traces of guilt from my conscience. When your own daughter calls you pathetic for building the empire that funds her lifestyle, the gloves come off permanently. I spread the documents across my desk like a general planning the final assault. Mortgage guarantees, health insurance policies, trust funds, country club memberships. Every financial thread that connected me to their lives lay before me, ready to be severed with surgical precision. My first call went to Pacific Northwest Bank, where I held the mortgage guarantees for both children's houses. This is Robert Mitchell. I need to terminate my guarantees on accounts 4847-2291 and 4847-2292, effective immediately. The banker's voice carried professional concern. Mr. Mitchell, those are substantial guarantees. The primary borrowers will need to requalify independently, and given their current debt-to-income ratios, that's their problem now. I signed the termination forms while we talked, each signature feeling like cutting anchor lines from a sinking ship. Within 30 days, both Ashley and Michael would face foreclosure proceedings if they couldn't secure independent financing. Given their credit card debt and spending habits, that seemed unlikely. Next came the health insurance policy that covered Ashley's entire family. Her children, my grandchildren, would lose coverage at midnight tonight unless she found alternative arrangements. The irony was perfect. The woman who'd criticized my lack of meaningful accomplishments would now scramble to replace benefits I'd provided without fanfare for years. I want to restructure the education trust funds I established, I told my banker during the third call. No, not restructure. Freeze them entirely. The beneficiaries are no longer eligible. My grandchildren's college funds, carefully built over years of monthly contributions, would remain untouched but inaccessible. Let Ashley and Michael explain to their children why Grandpa's meaningless construction business could no longer support their educational dreams. The country club memberships took 5 minutes to cancel. Ashley particularly valued her membership at Fairway Hills, not for golf, which she rarely played, but for the social connections and business networking opportunities. She'd built her interior design reputation largely through relationships cultivated in that clubhouse, relationships now severed with my membership cancellation. By noon, I'd dismantled 30 years of financial scaffolding in less than 4 hours. Each phone call felt cleaner than anger, more permanent than shouting. This was mathematics, simple cause and effect, action and consequence. I drafted formal notification letters explaining each change, written in the same professional tone I use for business correspondence. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. Due to recent reassessment of financial obligations, the following arrangements will be terminated effective immediately. Linda buzzed through the intercom as I sealed the last certified envelope. Mr. Mitchell, you've had 47 calls from Ashley and 23 from Michael. Should I continue taking messages? Forward everything to voicemail for the next week. They'll have plenty to discuss among themselves. I handed her the stack of certified letters, each one a precision strike designed to teach lessons that 30 years of indulgence had failed to convey. Send these out this afternoon. And Linda, clear my calendar for next week. I have a feeling I'll need to focus on family business. My phone immediately started buzzing with an unknown number, probably Michael calling from his wife's phone, thinking he could circumvent my assistant's screening. I watched it vibrate against my desk without answering. By 3 o'clock, my voicemail contained a symphony of panic. 47 messages from Ashley, 23 from Michael, and now calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Their spouses probably, trying to reach me through alternative channels. I allowed myself the indulgence of listening to the progression of their desperation. Ashley's first message, recorded around noon, still carried traces of her usual entitlement. Dad, I don't know what game you're playing, but the mortgage company called about our guarantee being canceled. Fix this immediately. By message number 12, her tone had shifted. Dad, please call me back. The insurance company says our coverage ends tonight. The children need their medications. What do you want from us? Michael's evolution was even more revealing. His early messages focused on business concerns, payroll issues, vendor payments, professional embarrassment. But by afternoon, the personal cost became clear. Dad, I had to tell Sarah everything. She's crying. The kids are asking why we might have to move schools. I know we hurt you, but please, they don't deserve this. The desperation in his voice was music. For 20 years, Michael had treated our conversations like interruptions to his busy schedule. Now his carefully constructed life was crumbling, and suddenly I was the most important person in his world. My sister Margaret called around 2:30, clearly recruited as a mediator. Robert, whatever Ashley and Michael did, don't you think this is extreme? They're family. Ask them what they said about me on Sunday night, I replied calmly. Ask them if they think I'm pathetic, if they're embarrassed to call me father. Then tell me about family. The silence on her end told me she was beginning to understand. Margaret had watched me spoil my children for decades, had probably wondered why they never seemed grateful. Now she was getting a glimpse of what lay beneath their surface politeness. Robert, they're panicking. Ashley called 3 lawyers today. They all told her you have every legal right to withdraw your financial support. Of course I do. It's my money, Margaret. I earned it. I can stop sharing it whenever I choose. By 4 o'clock, I'd learned through Linda's careful screening that they'd contacted my business partners, trying to reach me through professional channels. Tom Richards from the contractors union called, clearly uncomfortable with his role as messenger. Robert, I don't know what's going on with your family, but Ashley contacted me asking if I could talk to you. She seems pretty desperate. Tom, did she tell you what she said to me on Father's Day? Did she mention that she thinks my life's work is meaningless? His uncomfortable silence spoke volumes. Robert, I don't get involved in family business. Neither do I anymore. The most revealing call came from Michael's wife Sarah, a woman I genuinely liked despite her husband's weaknesses. Her voice shook as she left a message. Mr. Mitchell, I don't know what Michael and Ashley said to you, but please, the children are scared. Michael finally told me about all the money you've been providing. I had no idea we were so dependent. I'm embarrassed, but please don't punish the grandchildren for their father's mistakes. Hearing Sarah's humiliation crystallized something for me. These weren't just financial arrangements I was canceling. These were enabling structures that had prevented my children from becoming functional adults. Michael's wife hadn't even known their lifestyle was funded by my generosity. What kind of marriage builds on such deception? Linda buzzed through the intercom at 5:30. Mr. Mitchell, both your children are in the lobby. They brought their spouses. Security says they refuse to leave until you see them. I checked my watch. Tell security to give them until 6 o'clock. After that, escort them out. At 5:45, I descended to the marble lobby of my building, like a CEO meeting with failed contractors. Ashley and Michael sat on the leather chairs with their spouses, looking smaller and more desperate than I had ever seen them. The elegant corporate setting emphasized the power dynamic. This was my territory, my building, my rules. Ashley stood as I approached, her designer clothes wrinkled from stress, her usually perfect makeup smudged. Beside her, Michael looked pale and defeated, while their spouses watched nervously from the sidelines. Dad, thank you for seeing us. Ashley's voice carried a tremor I'd never heard before. We need to talk about what happened Sunday night. I remained standing, maintaining the advantage of height and authority. What about it? We realized we made mistakes. Michael said quickly, the words tumbling out like a rehearsed speech. We're family. Families forgive each other. We want to work this out. Their coordinated approach revealed the calculation behind their contrition. This wasn't spontaneous remorse, but a strategic attempt to restore their financial lifeline. Ashley's, I said quietly. What exactly did you mean when you said I never accomplished anything meaningful? Her eyes darted to Michael, then back to me. I was just upset, Dad. People say things they don't mean when they're emotional. You know I didn't mean it. I was emotional too, I replied. When I canceled your credit cards, when I terminated your mortgage guarantees, when I froze the grandchildren's college funds. I guess we all do things we don't mean when we're upset. Michael's wife Sarah stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Mitchell, I understand you're hurt, but please, think about the children. They don't understand why their grandfather suddenly doesn't love them anymore. I love them, I said firmly. That's why I'm teaching their parents the value of financial responsibility, something I should have done 30 years ago. Ashley's mask began to slip, frustration creeping into her voice. Dad, just tell us what you want us to do to fix this. Do you want an apology? Fine, we apologize. Do you want us to admit we were wrong? We were wrong. What else do you need? The insincerity was breathtaking. She was apologizing to my wallet, not to me. Ashley, answer me honestly. If I restored all your financial support right now, would you invite me to dinner next Sunday? Would you call just to ask how I'm doing? Would you treat me with basic respect? Her hesitation was answer enough. Even now, facing financial ruin, she couldn't pretend genuine affection for the man who'd funded her lifestyle for over 3 decades. Dad, that's not fair. What's not fair is taking everything and giving nothing back except contempt. I straightened my jacket, checking my watch. You have until Friday to make arrangements for your mortgages. Your health insurance expires at midnight tonight. The country club memberships are already canceled. Michael stepped forward desperately. Dad, we can change. We can be better. Just give us another chance. I gave you 34 years of chances, Michael. I gave you everything I had to give. In return, you gave me humiliation in a public restaurant and the knowledge that you're embarrassed to call me father. I turned toward the elevator, but Ashley's voice stopped me cold. You'll regret this. When you're old and sick and alone, don't come crying to us. You'll die alone, you pathetic old fool. I paused at the elevator button, her words confirming everything I'd realized about her character. Even facing financial catastrophe, her true nature emerged. Vindictive, entitled, incapable of genuine remorse. As the elevator doors opened, I turned back with a slight smile. Ashley, I'd rather die alone with my dignity than live surrounded by people who despise me but love my money. The doors closed on their stunned faces. 6 weeks later, I sat on my back patio watching the sunset paint Spokane's spring landscape in shades of gold and amber. The cherry trees I'd planted when Ashley was born were in full bloom, their branches heavy with pink blossoms that drifted across my lawn, like confetti celebrating a life reclaimed. Uncle Robert, can you help me with my science project? 8-year-old Emma from next door bounded over the fence, her face bright with the kind of genuine affection I'd waited 30 years to receive from my own grandchildren. Of course, kiddo. What are we building this time? A volcano. Mom says you know about construction stuff, so you can help me make it really explode. Her enthusiasm was infectious. For the past month, Emma and her siblings had adopted me as their honorary grandfather, bringing me drawings, asking for help with homework, inviting me to their school plays. Their parents, the Hendersons, had become close friends, people who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. Robert, you seem different lately, Tom Henderson observed as he joined us on the patio with 2 beers. Happier, more relaxed. I learned the difference between being loved and being used, I replied, watching Emma sketch volcano designs with serious concentration. The difference was profound. These neighbors appreciated small kindnesses, help with moving furniture, advice on home repairs, listening ears during family struggles. They offered the same in return, creating genuine relationships built on mutual respect rather than financial dependency. My new will, signed 3 weeks ago, reflected my changed priorities. The bulk of my estate would fund scholarships for children whose parents couldn't afford college, kids who might appreciate educational opportunities more than my own grandchildren had. The remainder would go to friends like the Hendersons and to my longtime employees at Mitchell Construction, people who'd shown me loyalty and respect over the years. Linda had mentioned that Ashley and Michael were slowly adapting to their new reality. Ashley had moved to a modest apartment and was working longer hours, actually earning her income instead of spending mine. Michael had downsized his business and was learning to operate within genuine profit margins rather than guaranteed credit lines. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles, but no guilt either. Natural consequences were teaching lessons that 30 years of indulgence had failed to convey. Sometimes love means letting people fall so they can learn to stand on their own. Uncle Robert, Emma tugged at my sleeve. My mom says you're the nicest man in the whole neighborhood. Why don't you have kids who visit you? The question could have been painful, but surrounded by chosen family who appreciated my presence, it felt more like validation than loss. Some families are born, Emma, and some families are made. I prefer the ones that are made with love instead of obligation. As evening deepened and the Henderson family headed home, I remained on my patio with a cup of coffee, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. A small hand pressed something into mine. Emma had returned with a dandelion she'd picked from my lawn. This is for you, Uncle Robert, because you're always nice to us and you make the best pancakes on Saturday mornings. I accepted the flower with genuine warmth, thinking about the twisted path that had led me to this moment of peace. 30 years I'd waited for appreciation from the wrong people, pouring love and money into relationships that gave nothing back except demands for more. The dandelion was worth more than every expensive gift I'd bought for Ashley and Michael combined, because it came from genuine affection rather than financial obligation. As Emma skipped back to her house, I settled deeper into my chair and smiled at the stars. Sometimes the family you choose is the only family you need. Sometimes justice comes not through revenge, but through the simple act of refusing to enable selfishness any longer. For the first time in decades, I was exactly where I belonged. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.